Imagine growing up in one of Britain's most prestigious families. Your grandfather is a duke. Your father is one of the country's rising political stars. Your home is filled with wealth, influence, and expectation. From the outside, your future appears almost predetermined. Yet inside that same house, you feel strangely invisible. The praise you crave rarely comes. The approval you long for always seems just beyond reach. School offers little comfort. Teachers see an intelligent but inconsistent boy, one who struggles to fit the mold expected of him. Even those closest to him wonder whether he will ever amount to very much. No one looking at that child could have imagined that one day he would lead Britain through its darkest hour. But history rarely announces its leaders in advance. Welcome to the Mammoth in the Room podcast, where we share real-life stories about leadership and their underlying human behavior rooted in science and research. We unpack and interpret the evolutionary forces behind it to help you to better lead your people for outstanding business results. Welcome back, everyone, to the Mammoth in the Room, where we explore leadership lessons that stand the test of time, using history and neuroscience to explain the human behavior behind pivotal decisions, because those same patterns still shape how leaders and teams succeed or fail in organizations today. I'm Nicholas Bocconi, CEO of Mammoth Leadership Sciences. This is the first episode in our 10-part series about Winston Churchill. Not simply the story of Britain's wartime prime minister, but the story of how decades of success, failure, rejection, ambition, and reinvention gradually prepared one man for the greatest crisis his country would ever face. Churchill was born on November 30th, 1874, at Blenheim Palace, one of England's greatest country houses. His family belonged to the highest ranks of British aristocracy, and from birth he inherited a name that carried both privilege and expectation. His father, Lord Randolph Churchill, was one of the most promising politicians of his generation. Brilliant, ambitious, and fiercely demanding, he rose rapidly through conservative politics before illness and political miscalculation cut his career short. His mother, Jenny Jerome, was an American socialite whose charm and intelligence attracted attention throughout London society. To the outside world, the Churchill household appeared extraordinary. Inside, it was considerably more complicated. Like many upper-class Victorian families, much of Winston's day-to-day care fell not to his parents, but to his nanny, Elizabeth Everest. Throughout his childhood, she became the steady source of affection, encouragement, and emotional security that he remembered long into adulthood. His relationship with his parents was far more distant. Churchill admired his father deeply and desperately wanted to earn his approval. The surviving correspondence shows a young boy who cared enormously about what his father thought of him. Lord Randolph, however, often judged his son's school performance harshly, expressing disappointment rather than encouragement. It is tempting to draw a straight line from those childhood experiences to the ambitious adult Churchill would later become. History simply does not allow us to do that with confidence, though. Modern developmental psychology reminds us that childhood influences people in remarkable different ways. Similar experiences can produce entirely different outcomes depending on personality, relationships, opportunity, and countless other factors that no historian can fully reconstruct. What we can observe is something more concrete. Again and again, when Churchill encountered disappointment, his response was rarely withdrawal. It was determination. That pattern would repeat throughout his life. Churchill's early education hardly suggested future greatness. At school, he often frustrated his teachers. His performance varied dramatically across subjects. He showed little enthusiasm for many of the disciplines considered essential for a gentleman's education. Yet beneath the inconsistency lay remarkable strengths. He possessed an exceptional memory. He developed a fascination with English language and history, and he displayed an unusual confidence in expressing his own opinions even when that differed from those around him. These qualities did not necessarily make him an easy student, but they hinted at abilities that conventional school measurements struggled to capture. Eventually, Churchill entered Harrow School, one of Britain's most respected institutions. His academic record remained uneven, but his interest in military history and public affairs continued to grow. By the early 1890s, he had decided that a military career offered both purpose and possibility. His path, however, would not be straightforward. Admission to the Royal Military College at Sandhurst was highly competitive. Churchill did not succeed immediately. Instead of abandoning the goal, however, he continued preparing until he finally secured admission. That determination would become one of the defining features of his career. Failure rarely persuaded Churchill to lower his ambitions. Instead, it often sharpened them. Behavioral scientists describe this as adaptive persistence. Rather than viewing setbacks as permanent judgments about ability, some individuals continue searching for different strategies, different opportunities, or simply another attempt. Importantly, persistence itself guarantees nothing. Many persistent people still fail. What distinguished Churchill, however, was not the persistence alone, but his willingness to keep redirecting his effort toward the next available opportunity. At Sandhurst, something changed. For the first time, Churchill found an environment better suited to his strengths. Military education rewarded discipline, practical judgment, and decisive action more than classical scholarship. He graduated near the top of his class, an outcome that surprised many who had known only the struggling schoolboy. The transformation did not happen because Churchill suddenly became a different person. Rather, he had finally found an arena where his existing abilities could flourish. Leadership often works in much the same way. Organizations sometimes assume talent is fixed. Yet history repeatedly shows that performance depends heavily on context. The same individual who appears average in one environment may become exceptional in another, if the surrounding demands better match their strengths. Churchill had discovered his environment. In February 1895, he received his commission as a second lieutenant in the 4th Queen's Own Hussars. His military career had begun. But for Churchill, being an officer was never going to be enough. He wanted more than a respectable career, more than steady promotion, more than quiet competence. He wanted distinction and influence, and wanted to build a life large enough to stand beside the heroes whose histories he had spent years reading. That ambition would soon carry him far beyond ordinary military service. Across Cuba, India, the Sudan, into South Africa, toward gunfire, captivity, newspaper headlines, and political power. Each step would bring extraordinary opportunity, and each success would quietly raise the stakes of the decisions still to come. Before we close, here are 2 leadership takeaways from today's episode. First, early setbacks do not determine future leadership. What matters far more is how people repeatedly respond to disappointment. Resilience is not something hardship automatically creates. It is built through the choices people make after adversity, and those choices remain available throughout a career. Second, great leaders often emerge when personal strengths finally meet the right environment. Before concluding that someone lacks potential, organizations should ask whether they are evaluating the individual in a context where those strengths can actually be expressed. In our next episode, Churchill discovers that courage alone does not build influence. He learns to transform military adventure into public reputation, becoming soldier, journalist, author, and politician in remarkable, quick succession. Yet, with every success comes a subtle danger. The rewards of being right can slowly convince a leader that their judgment is becoming impossible to question. All right, this was it again for today. If this episode resonated with you, whether as a leader, a student of history, or someone curious about why power unfolds the way it does, please subscribe, rate, and share it with someone in your network who would appreciate this kind of perspective. And lastly, if you're interested in more, you can order my book. It has the same title as this podcast, The Mammoth in the Room. It offers a practical roadmap for how great leaders and their teams embrace evolutionary truths for outstanding business results. And it does that across 3 sections: on people, on strategy, and on implementation. Until next time, lead wisely, think critically, and don't let ancient instincts quietly hijack your modern leadership. I'm Nicholas Bocconi, and this is The Mammoth in the Room. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy this content, don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you on the next episode of The Mammoth in the Room.